Elara Vance stood at the edge of the giant landing platform, staring up at the silver towers of the Interstellar Academy. They pierced the sky like blades. Above, alien ships roared in and out of the atmosphere, some shaped like insects, others like floating temples. Around her, hundreds of students walked, slithered, floated, or hovered through the gates. They came from across the galaxy. Elara was the only human. She stepped forward. Her boots made soft clicks on the polished surface. She adjusted the patch on her chest. The human flag Earth's marca, small, faded, and already peeling. At the edges, her clothes were basic, while everyone else wore armor, glowing robes or suits that hummed with energy. "Look at that thing," whispered a tall insectoid alien to its friend, its voice sharp and metallic, a meat skin. Primitive ape, chuckled another, this one floating with no legs. "Why let her in? Is this a joke?" Elara kept walking. Her hands were tight at her sides, fists clenched so hard her nails bit her palms. She didn't say anything, not yet. The Academy's entry hall was larger than a city stadium. Marble from asteroid quarries, glowing vines from gas giants, and statues of legendary warriors lined the walls. A giant hologram of the galaxy spun above them. A voice echoed through the hall. It was smooth, cold, and digital. "Welcome, first-year cadets. Please report to Orientation Hall 7. As Elara entered the orientation chamber, the laughter grew. Louder. A group of Solarians, thick-skinned reptilian beings with double mouths, watched her walk in. One dropped a heavy boot in front of her. She nearly tripped. "Oops," the Solarian hissed. "Didn't see you there, soft meat," the others howled. Elara looked up at him. Her voice was quiet. "That boot still has blood on it, eh?" Stopped laughing, looked down. A smear of reddish crust clung to the heel. Before he could respond, a deep humming filled the air. The room darkened. A tall, glowing figure appeared at the front stage. Silver skin. No eyes. A perfect sphere hovered over its shoulder. "Welcome, candidates," it said. "I am Overseer Kale, artificial observer of class potential. Before this cycle begins, you must face your first test." Murmurs spread through the room. No one expected a test this early. Kale raised a hand. The walls shimmered and fell away. The room turned into a rocky desert, with sharp cliffs and glowing dust storms. The temperature dropped. "This is a simulation," Kale explained. "You must cross the terrain. Survive for 10 minutes. That is all. No weapons. No assistance." "Wait," someone shouted. "That's a classic's death zone." "Yes," said Kale. "Now begin." The ground shifted beneath them. The platform vanished. Lara dropped hard onto burning sand. Wind screamed. Sharp crystal fragments flew past her face. One cut her cheek. Blood dripped. She pulled her jacket tight and crawled to a small overhang of rock. The others were already scattered, running or flying, each trying to find cover. Lightning struck in the distance. A Cadrex with 8 limbs tried to climb a spire, but was knocked off by a wave of heat and smoke. It didn't get up, Elara breathed. Slowly, focused. Her heart thudded like a drum in her ears, but she didn't move yet. She scanned the storm patterns. Noticed the flashes weren't random? They pulsed in cycles every 13 seconds. A pattern, she counted. 1, 2, 3. When the wind dropped for just 2 seconds, she sprinted. She leaped over a deep crack in the sand, ducked behind a ridge, and curled up. Her skin burned. Her mind screamed. But her eyes remained sharp. One more move. Across the field, another candidate exploded into flame, another crushed by falling stone. Elara saw a route narrow and dangerous, but stable. She moved fast, quiet, precise. 9 minutes. The dust storm thinned. The simulation began to flicker. Only 6 candidates still stood. Overseer Kale watched from above, motionless. His sphere glowed bright blue. Suddenly it turned red. He looked again at Elara. She wasn't just surviving. She was adapting. Her body had adjusted to the air pressure. Her pupils had narrowed to counteract the dust light. Her breathing matched the rhythm of the storm. "This wasn't normal. This can't be human biology," Kale said quietly. He signaled the AI recorder. Log anomaly. Subject human female. Evolutionary behavior unprecedented. 10 minutes passed. The simulation shut down. The terrain disappeared. The students stood again in the white marble hall, panting, bruised, some crying, others missing limbs. Elara stood among them, bleeding, burned but breathing. Kale stared at her, unexpected. The Solarian who had mocked her earlier looked at her now with quiet eyes, said nothing. Later that night, deep inside the AI archives, Kale reviewed the footage again. Frame by frame, he zoomed in on Elara's face, watched how she moved, how her eyes tracked the storm's patterns, how her muscles adapted microsecond by microsecond. She wasn't just lucky, she was changing. He ran her genetic scan again. The results appeared and froze his system. Unknown marker detected. Precursor class. Origin. Unclassified. Kale backed away from the screen. This shouldn't be possible, he whispered. Then quietly another voice spoke from the shadows of the archive room. She is not alone. Kale turned, but the room was empty. The shadows stirred and something left without being seen. Elara sat alone at the edge of the training yard. Her jacket was torn, her boots cracked, and one of her knuckles was still bleeding. She didn't care. She stared out at the dark sky. 2 moons glowed above the academy towers. Somewhere out there, across the stars, Earth floated in silence. No one sat near her. After the storm test, the laughter stopped. The other cadets didn't speak to her anymore. Not out of hate, but confusion. Fear, maybe. She didn't mind the silence. She needed it to think. Why was she able to survive that storm? Why did it feel like her body knew what to do? Her thoughts were cut short by a loud chime. A red alert flashed across the yard. Students gathered near the display wall. The academy seal flickered. Then a voice spoke. Emergency trial activation. Combat protocols Zeta Prime. All cadets report to Arena Core Delta. Immediate. Elara's stomach dropped. Combat protocol Zeta Prime was a legend. It was never used. It was a one-on-one trial, reserved for dangerous skill matches or executions. Disguised as tests, she walked toward the arena. Inside, the floor glowed white. Massive walls surrounded a circular platform. On the opposite end stood her opponent, Drakkar, Titan-class warrior, from the war moons of Vargon. Over 9 feet tall, skin like obsidian armor, eyes like molten iron. He cracked his neck and smiled, revealing sharp fangs. I volunteered, he growled. Ow. I want to see what the little human can do. The crowd around the arena stood in silence. Even the instructors didn't move. No one stopped the fight. Drakkar stepped forward, his footsteps heavy. You made us look weak in the test. That's not allowed. Elara said nothing. She pulled. Her gloves tighter. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear. The overseer spoke. Trial begins in 3, 2, 1. Drakkar moved first fast, a blur of strength. His massive arms swung forward, ready to crush her. But she was already gone. Elara ducked low, rolled under a strike, and spun to the side. She didn't hit him yet, just watched. Calculated, Drakkar laughed. Fast little monkey. He came. Again, a full charge this time. Elara waited until the last moment, then jumped sideways, grabbing a nearby pole and flipping over him. She landed clean on her feet. Drakkar snarled. Fight me. She raised her hand. You already lost. He didn't understand until he noticed the blinking red lights around the floor. Pressure sensors. His last charge had triggered them. A penalty. Combat AI warning. Reckless movement. 1 strike penalty activated. Drakkar roared. He didn't care. He lunged again. Elara finally struck. Just 1 punch straight to the side of his head. Stopped mid-run, staggered. Not because of pain, because something hit his mind. His body froze, muscles locked, eyes wide. He dropped to 1 knee. Silence fell over the entire arena. The overseer stood. Combat ended. Human. Elara Vance victory by neural override. Whispers spread across the stands. Neural override? That wasn't possible without deep techilegal tech. But no device was found on her. No implants, no enhancements. She just looked at Dracker, and his mind shut down. Later in the medical, Baedricker sat motionless. He wasn't injured. His body worked fine, but he couldn't explain what happened. She said a word, he muttered. A word I've never heard, but it felt ancient. Cale reviewed the combat logs. No audio. Picked up the word. It was like the sound didn't exist in the digital record.
Oh.
He called a meeting with the high instructors. We are dealing with an anomaly, he said. This human is not just adapting. What do you mean? One instructor, Cale pulled up her DNA profile again. The strange marker blinked. Her body holds fragments of something older. Older than even our galactic records. You're suggesting she's part precursor? Another asked, eyes wide. Cale shook his head slowly. No, not part. Possibly. Something new. Back in her dorm, Elara stared into the mirror. Touched her cheek, still bruised from the test. Her fingers trembled slightly. She remembered something strange during the fight. A word appeared in her mind. Not English, not anything she'd ever learned. It came from nowhere. But when she said it, Dracker stopped. She wasn't sure if she was more scared or more curious. She heard a soft buzz. Her door slid open. Small drone floated in, message light blinking. Elara took the note. No name, just a line. You are being watched. Meet me at the ruins beneath the East Tower. Midnight. She looked out the window. The academy lights flickered. Security drones moved across the skies like metal birds. She looked back at the note. Read it again. Something deep in her bones said, Go. That night, just before midnight, Elara slipped from her room. She moved quietly through the dark halls, past patrols, past cameras. Somehow she knew the timing, knew when to turn, when to hide. It was like something inside her was guiding her. She reached the East Tower. Beneath it, a stairwell, old, cracked, abandoned. She climbed down. Stone walls, broken metal doors. This part of the academy wasn't on any map. She entered a chamber filled with dust and old energy panels. Then she saw someone standing in the shadows, cloaked, tall, silent. A figure turned slowly. A soft, metallic mask covered its face. But when it spoke, the voice was calm and deep. You passed the first trials, he said, just like she did. Elara stepped back. Who are you? Someone like you, the figure replied. Someone they tried to erase. What do you mean? She asked. They've lied to everyone about what humans are, about what we were, and what you are becoming. Elara stared. Her heart pounded. I don't understand. You will, the figure said. But first, you must survive what's coming next. He pulled a small device from his cloak, handed it to her. Keep this with you. When they come for you and they will use it. Why me? She asked. Because, he said, turning away, you're not just a human anymore. Then he disappeared into the shadows, leaving Elara alone in the dark, holding a device that hummed with quiet power. And for the first time, Elara didn't feel like the joke of the galaxy. She felt like a threat. The next morning, the entire academy buzzed with a strange energy. Whispers filled the halls. Elara Vance. She beat Dracker. They say she didn't even touch him. She used a mind weapon. Forbidden tech. No, she just spoke. That's all. In the mess hall, Elara sat at the far end, alone again. The food on her tray sat untouched. She wasn't hungry. She couldn't stop thinking about the night before, about the masked figure in the ruins, and the small device, now hidden in her pocket. Every time she touched it, she felt a gentle pulse, like it was alive or aware. Across the hall, someone was watching her. Professor Velt, a thin, pale alien with too many eyes, whispered into a communicator. She's unstable. She must be. Scanned again. Behind the scenes, alarms had already been raised. Her DNA file had been locked. Overseer Cale wasn't allowed to run further tests. Orders had come from the top of the Galactic Council. But Cale didn't stop. Steady broke. The rules. In secret, he had uploaded Elar's combat data into the Academy's Deep Analysis Core, a hidden system only accessed in times of war. It returned a single result: Level 9 threat detected. Unknown origin. Potential inheritor class. Kale stared at the screen. Then he did something dangerous. He pressed share and sent the data to someone far, far away. Back in the Academy, the next trial had begun. Students were gathered in the neural doma glowing chamber, filled with floating energy threads. The challenge: connect with the core and shape a weapon using only the mind. For most species, this was easy. Telepathic races bent energy like water. Even the Varnock worms could shape crude hammers with their collective thoughts. Elara had never done anything like this. She stood at her station. The instructor looked at her. Let's see what the human can do. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes. At first, nothing happened. The threads just floated. Other students began to smirk. She's not doing it. She doesn't belong here. Elara heard them, and then she let go, not just of doubt, of everything. Thoughts dropped into silence, and something opened. She felt heat in her chest. Saw flashes of memory that weren't hers deserts under twin suns, cities of crystal, wars in the stars. A voice whispered in her mind. Shape, speak, become. Her eyes snapped open, and the room changed. The threads around her pulsed then, shot toward her in a spiral. They twisted, burned, reformed into something strange. A blade, but not a normal one. It was made of shifting black light, curved like a crescent moon, humming with unreadable runes. The other students stepped back. One passed out. The instructor froze. His voice shook. That's not possible. Weapons shaped in the dome were stored for review. But this one couldn't be recorded. The scanners failed. Cameras glitched. The AI stuttered. Energy weapon. Class. Unknown. Material. Impossible. Memory interference detected. Recommend. Termination. Elara let the weapon go, and it vanished into smoke. The room went silent. Even the instructor didn't know what to say. She walked out without a word. Outside the dome, a small group of elite students waited. The Council Bloods, children of rulers, titled heirs. They blocked her path. One stepped forwards, sake Prince of the Drawl Dominion. Tall, armored, glowing. Lines across his face. You embarrass the Academy, he said coldly. You twist things you don't understand. It makes you dangerous. Elara didn't answer. Zoc pulled a crystal from his chestplate. I challenge you.
Rules?
No interference. Agreed. She paused, then nodded. The other students formed a circle. Zake activated his blade, pure star metal, humming with compressed energy. He struck first, fast, clean, designed to kill, but Elara didn't dodge. She raised her hand and the strange weapon appeared again, as if summoned from nothing. It blocked the blow with a crack of thunder. Then it pulsed. Zake was thrown backward, sliding across the ground. His armor smoked. Elara didn't move. He stared at her with wide eyes. What are you? She didn't answer. But the wind shifted. Everyone around them felt Eton's invisible weight in the air, like gravity had bent, like the world was holding its breath. Elara left without a word. That night, Kale sat in the deep archives, waiting. A signal came through a world encrypted, ancient, a voice he hadn't heard in years. You found her, it said. Kale nodded. She's here. She's awakening. You understand what this means? Yes, Kale said. She lives. The balance shifts. She can't be allowed to fall into their hands. She won't, Kale said. But the council will act soon. Then move faster. The call ended. Kale stood and looked at the galaxy map. Earth. Blinked in one corner and near the center. A red signal flashed. Faint, dormant. Inheritor beacon detected. Status. Activating. Back in her room, Elara stared at the device the masked figure had given her. It glowed now softly, like it was waking up. She touched it. A map appeared in the air. Not of the Academy, of the galaxy. And in the center was a mark. A location. she had never seen, but somehow she knew. She had to go there because something, someone, was calling. And she didn't think she was human anymore, not fully. Something inside her had changed. Or maybe it had always been there, waiting. Elara sat in her dorm, staring at the glowing map. The device hovered silently above her hand, spinning a three-dimensional projection of the galaxy. A single star system blinked red in the center. It wasn't labeled. No coordinates, no name. Just a pulse. She didn't know what was there. Her body did. Every time she looked at it, her skin tingled. Her vision sharpened. Something inside her pulled toward it like gravity. A voice in her memory whispered again, "Become." A sudden knock broke the silence. She quickly closed the map and shoved the device into her pocket. "Come in," she said. The door slid open. It wasn't a student. It was Overseer Kale. He stepped inside, tall and glowing slightly as always. But this time, his sphere floated. Lower, slower, like it was unsure. "You're being transferred," Kale said without emotion. "Transferred. To a private chamber for advanced training," he said. "Effective immediately." "Why now?" she asked. "After the arena? After the dome?" Kale hesitated for just a second. That was enough to confirm it. He was hiding something. "There are concerns," he said finally. Lara narrowed her eyes. "Whose?" Kale didn't answer. Two armed security bots entered behind him. They didn't point weapons, but they didn't need to. This wasn't a request. Elara stood, calm and quiet. But inside, the device in her pocket pulsed. Twice. Warning. Kale led her through the quiet halls, far below the surface levels. Down elevators she didn't know existed. Through a tunnel that pulsed with red light, the door ahead was sealed with thick metal locks. Behind it, a cold, dark room waited. No windows. One chair, one scanner. She stepped inside. Kale followed. "I have to scan your DNA again," he said, privately. "Why?" "Because the council says you're dangerous," he admitted. "'Cause they're scared." She turned to face him. "Are you scared?" Kale didn't move. Then, without warning, the device in her pocket beeped. 3 pulses. Immediate threat. She stepped back. The walls around her rippled. A hidden force field snapped on. Kale stepped away from the console. "It's not my choice," he said quietly. "They gave the order. They want to dissect you." Lara's heart raced. From the ceiling, robotic arms began to lower. "Scalpels, scanners, energy needles. You're not going to stop it?" Kale looked away, but someone else did. The device in her pocket flared to life. It projected a flash of blue light across the room. The metal arms froze midair, then exploded. Sparks flew. The force field failed. The room shook. Kale ducked, shielding himself from the blast. Elara was already running. Doors sealed behind her. Red alarms flashed. "Subject Elara Vance has escaped containment. Lockdown Protocol 7 initiated." She didn't stop. Somehow she knew the way. Left, down the tube, into the abandoned training wing. Security drones tried to intercept her. She leaped over one, slid under another. A wall of fire cut off her exit, but the device fired a pulse, and it shut down instantly. She made it to a lift. Punched in a code she didn't remember learning, the floor dropped. The lift descended deeper than she'd ever known the academy went. Finally, it opened. What she saw wasn't part of the school. It was ancient. A dark, quiet hall, built from stone and metal, older than anything she'd seen. Symbols carved into the walls glowed faintly as she stepped forward. The air felt heavy, electric, like time itself had paused here. She walked carefully, following. A faint blue line on the floor that pulsed in sync with the device in her hand. The hallway opened into a chamber, a massive one. In the center stood a black obelisk, floating inches above the ground, covered in glowing marks, shapes that shifted as she watched them. She stepped closer. Her mind swam, visions. Voices not in words but in memories that weren't hers. A sky full of ships, planets burning, A race of beings, tall and bright, kneeling before one figure, her. No, not her, but connected to her. The obelisk spoke not with sound, but with thought. Inheritor identified. Activation sequence complete. Lara fell to her knees. The ground shook. The marks on the obelisk raced with light. Across the galaxy in the council chamber, alarms blared. An elder floating in a throne of light stared at the readings. Impossible, he whispered. The human has touched the vault. Which vault? Asked another. The final one? The one we buried before time? In the academy, Kale watched as the hidden footage streamed in. He couldn't believe it. She found it, he said. No one was supposed to. No one should have been able to activate it, but Elara had. Back in the chamber, the obelisk rose higher. A beam of light hit her chest. Pain shot through her, but she didn't scream. She welcomed it. Her veins glowed, her eyes burned with energy. The device on her hip shattered. It had done its job. The vault had chosen her. Words formed in her mind. Your kind was not born. To kneel, you were made to return. Then everything went dark. When she woke, she was outside, lying in a crater of scorched earth, deep in the academy's outer forest. The vault was gone. But the mark on her hand remained 3, small glowing lines shaped like a triangle. She stood up slowly, and behind her in the trees, the masked figure stepped out again. You found it, he said. What was it? She asked. A memory, he replied, of who we were, of what you're becoming. Were you? Who are you? He removed his mask. Underneath was a human face. Scar ran from his temple to his jaw. His eyes glowed faintly blue. I was the last inheritor, he said. Until now, Elara stepped forward. Why did they lie to us? Because they're afraid, he said. The galaxy has forgotten what humans really are. What we were built for. Not war, not peace, but balance. And when that balance breaks, he looked up at the sky. We awaken. Elara felt her hands tremble, not from fear, from power. Everything was changing now, and the galaxy would never be the same. The masked man, now unmasked, stood quietly beside Elara in the trees. His name was Rain. He didn't offer a long speech, didn't explain everything. He just said 4 words. They're coming for you. Elara looked up at the sky. Black dots. Appeared small at first, then growing ships. Not academy patrols. Something bigger. I've seen those before, Rain said, stepping beside her. Council Blackblades? Silent class assassins? You don't arrest. They erase. Alara's heart beat harder. Why? Just because I touched the vault? No, Rain said. Because the vault responded to you. They've tried to keep the inheritor line buried for centuries, but it's awake again. They're scared. The wind shifted. The ship slowed. It didn't land. They hovered in the clouds like shadows waiting to fall. Come, he said. We need to leave now. Where? Elad asked. Rain tapped a wristband. Quiet hum filled the air. A ship shimmered into views, small, sleek, silver, hidden behind a cloaking shield. Elara hesitated. What if I stay? You won't live past sunrise. She didn't wait any longer. They ran. The ship's hatch opened. Cold air rushed out. Inside, it was silent. No crew. It's just soft blue lights and rows of tech she didn't recognize. Rain took the pilot's seat. Elara sat behind him as they rose into the air. Lara looked back. The academy's towers stood tall, glowing like beacons. She remembered. Walking into those halls alone? Laughed at. Mocked. Now. Those same halls feared her, and the galaxy wanted her dead. Strap in, Rain said. We're punching out, Elara did. The ship groaned. Then silence, and then speed. She felt her body press back into the seat as stars stretched outside the window like rivers of light. They were in slipstream. Now, gone from the academy, safe for now, but not unseen. In the council hall, high above the central stars, 12 beings sat around a burning circle in the center. A projection of Elara hovered, spinning slowly. She touched the vault, one of them hissed. Let her be tested, said another. If she fails, the galaxy resets. If she succeeds, she must not succeed. A third snapped. We'll send the Apex. The room went silent. Even the shadows paused. No one has summoned the Apex in 1,000 years, said the oldest. The voice replied coldly, Then it's time. Back in the ship, Elara sat cross-legged in the observation bay. She couldn't sleep. She kept seeing it. The moment the vault's light entered her, the words echoing in her head, Your kind was not born to kneel. She felt something inside her awake, alive. A voice broke her thoughts. Rain entered the bay. You felt it too, didn't you? He asked. She nodded, like something unlocked. Like I'm not just me anymore. Not, he said. You're part of something that hasn't walked this galaxy in a long time. Something they thought was gone forever.
Yes.
Who were the inheritors? She asked. Rain sat across from her. His face looked older in the dim light. We were humans. Changed, he said. Not by choice. Long ago, before the Council ruled the stars, the galaxy was on fire. Wars, empires rising and falling. And then something happened. Humans adapted. To what? To everything. He continued. The old ones called it the echo gene, a part of us that listens, changes, learns. Not just from now, from what came before. Elara swallowed. So, I'm a copy of someone, Rain said. We're all of them. All their knowledge, their instincts, their fury. You're not one warrior. You're thousands compressed into one bloodline. She stared at her hands. They didn't look different, but they felt it. What happens now? She asked. We find the last beacon, he said. Before the Apex finds you. Elsewhere, on a dying moon, creature opened its eyes for the first time in centuries. Tall, thin, covered in armor, made from light and shadow. Its face had no mouth, no eyes, just a single burning glyph where a forehead would be. The Apex, it rose, without sound, and began to move. Across the stars, entire systems fell silent. Ships vanished. Moons collapsed into dust. The Apex left no trail, but its presence warped everything. And it was coming for her. Rain's ship landed on a dead planet 2 days later. The beacon was buried beneath a mountain of glass and ash. It pulsed faintly under the surface. Only someone carrying the vault mark could activate it. Elara placed her hand on the stone. Nothing happened at first. Then light exploded across the crater. The ground split open. Rain dumped back. A machine tall, ancient humming with power rose from below. The final beacon, it spoke without words. Inheritor verified. Apex protocol engaged. Stand by for contact. What does that mean? Elara asked. Rain looked grim. It means we're not hiding. Anymore. You've been seen. Far above, a ripple spread across the galaxy. The Apex turned its head. It knew where she was, and it was close. Later that night, Elara stood on the cliff edge, watching the black sky. The stars felt closer now, like they were watching her. Rain stepped beside her. You still scared? Elara nodded. Terrified. He smiled faintly. Good, that means you're still human. She looked at him. What happens if I fight it? You win her? You burn the galaxy with you? She looked back up at the sky. Somewhere in the dark between stars, the Apex moved, unstoppable, ancient, perfect. But Elara wasn't just human anymore. She was what they'd tried to erase, and she would not run. Not anymore. The stars above the dead planet pulsed unnaturally. Something was coming. Rain stood at the beacon's control panel, his face pale under the flickering light. Numbers scrolled across the display, ancient glyphs. Neither of them could fully read, but the message was clear. The Apex has entered system space. Elara didn't move. She stared out at the black sky, fists clenched, heart pounding. Where is it? Rain didn't answer, because they both felt it. A pressure like the universe itself had taken a breath and held it. No ship, no warning. Just silence. Then the air cracked, and the Apex appeared. One moment, sky was empty. The next, A dark shape floated just above the beacon platform. It didn't land. It didn't speak. It simply hovered, tall, thin, cloaked in shifting armor, made of liquid metal and starlight. A burning glyph floated above its featureless face. Elara stepped forward slowly. Rain grabbed her wrist. "Don't." "Free? I have to." The apex lowered. Feet touched the ground without sound. Even gravity bowed around it. For a long moment, it did nothing. Then it knelt. Rain froze. That's not possible. Lara's breath caught in her chest. This was the apex. The thing that erased worlds. That made even council fleets retreat. And it had knelt before her. Its head lowered, and a voice ancient, layered with echoes from 1,000 species, entered her mind. "She has returned." Elara stepped closer. "Why me?" The apex did not. Rise only responded, "You are the last light, the final seed, the one they feared most." She didn't understand. "I'm just a girl from Earth," she whispered. "No," the voice said. "That? You are Earth's answer. The memory of what came? Before the will to rise again." Behind her, Rain finally found words. "This means she's not just an inheritor. She's the anchor." Elara turned. A person who cannot be controlled, cannot be broken, not chosen by blood or rank, but by survival. The apex continued. She endured. She adapted. She listened. And then the glyph above its head burned brighter. The sky trembled. From above, a council fleet dropped into orbit. They had come in silence, but they had come to kill. Massive ships blotted out the stars. The largest among them opened a communication channel. A voice echoed across the beacon grounds. "Elara Vance, surrender immediately. You are a declared Class 0 threat to galactic order." Rain swore. They tracked the apex's signal. "Know what you are now." Elara looked at the apex. It remained kneeling, waiting. The voice spoke again. "You are outnumbered. You have over 400 vessels. You will not survive this." But Elara didn't look afraid. She stepped forward. Her eyes glowed faintly now. Her voice was calm. "I'm not alone." She raised her hand. The beacon behind her answered. Light surged across the ground, carving symbols into the stone. A pulse shot into the sky, and then the impossible happened. Across the stars, hidden vaults awoke. One on a frozen moon, another deep in a gas giant, third beneath the surface of Mars. They all flared, broadcasting the same signal. Anchor verified. Defense protocol. Reclamation. Ships blinked into existence around the beacon. Not council ships. Ancient ships. Precursor designs. Long thought destroyed. They surrounded Elara, sleek, silent, silver-armored. Not hundreds. The council fleet. Paused. Their voice wavered. "What are those?" Rain grinned. "Hope." The apex finally stood. It turned toward the council ships above and raised its hand. No. Weapons fired, but space itself rippled, and across the stars, fear returned to the ones who ruled. Elara stood beneath the glowing beacon, wind blowing her. Hair, arms at her sides. She wasn't running anymore. The universe had watched her kneel. Now it would watch her rise, because she was the storm they couldn't predict, the girl they mocked, the weapon they buried, and now she had awakened the past, and brought it with her. Above the shattered beacon world, two armadas floated in silence. On one side, the Galactic Council fleet over 400 warships, cloaked in authority, built to erase threats. On the other, ancient ships, sleek and glowing vessels from a forgotten age, awakened only because Elara Vance had touched the vault at the center. Between stars and fire stood a human, just a girl, once mocked, once ignored, now protected by the apex itself. A signal came through again from the Council's flagship. "Stand down. Elara Vance, return with us, or we'll begin planetary cleansing." She didn't answer. The apex stood beside her, waiting. Rain hovered near. A blade on his back, tension in his breath. "What are you going to do?" he asked. Elara looked up at the enemy ships, then at the ancient fleet behind her, silent, watching, waiting for a command. "I'm not going to war," she said softly. Rain blinked. "You're not." "I'm going to speak." She stepped forward, activated the beacon core once more, and connected her voice to every ship, every channel, every species in orbit. "This is Elara Vance of Earth," she said, her voice calm, clear, echoing beyond the stars. "You called me a threat, a mistake, an accident. But I'm not the danger. I'm the reminder." Silence. She continued. "You ruled by fear. You erased those who remembered the truth. You told the galaxy that humans were nothing, just shadows, just noise." The ships around her shimmered with light. The apex raised its arms, sent a pulse into space, a memory wave. The council ships were forced to watch. They saw a time before the council, when humans were diplomats, explorers, warriors, leaders. When inheritors stood among the stars and made peace with empires now dust. They saw humanity not as a disease, but as the missing piece. And they saw how that history had been wiped. Elara lowered her voice. "I'm not here to take revenge. I'm here to bring balance, to remind the stars what we are." She looked at the apex, then stepped in front of it and knelt. The galaxy gasped. The strongest being in known existence had knelt before her, and now she was kneeling before everyone else. A council captain whispered, "Why is she kneeling?" Rain answered quietly, "Because she doesn't want power. She wants peace." That changed everything. The apex turned, bowed again, slowly disappeared. Not destroyed, just gone. Its task complete, above the council fleet began to power down. Weapons. One ship left, then another, then a third. Within minutes, the entire armada was retreating. No one gave the order. They just understood this was not a war they could win, because Elara hadn't come with fire. She came with truth. 3 days later, the council officially removed the threat classification on her name. Rain and Elara stood outside the beacon ruins, watching. The sky returned to peace. "You changed everything," he said. "No," Elara smiled. "We reminded them." Ships from hundreds of worlds began to arrive, not for battle, but for talks, for understanding, for unity. The inheritor line was no longer a secret. It was a future. Weeks passed. Elara walked alone through the academy ruins. The same halls that once echoed with laughter at her now stood quiet with respect. She paused at the central chamber. A statue was being built there, not of her, but of the apex kneeling. Below it, a plaque. "Strength does not come from power, from the choice to rise without using it." Far across the galaxy, deep in the core systems, a council elder reviewed an ancient file. The final report read, "Subject, Elara Vance. Status, living legacy. Role, anchor. Recommendation, observe. Do not interfere." Closed the file, sat back, and whispered to himself, "Maybe the galaxy still has a chance." As the stars turned overhead, Elara stood once more at the cliff's edge. No weapons, no armies, just wind and memory. She wasn't a weapon. She was a warning. She was hope. She was human, and the galaxy would never forget her again.